Friends, hello everyone. Glad to see you on my channel. Today we are waiting for an incredible adventure through the Baltic countries. We will visit two countries, namely Estonia and Latvia. I'll tell you how harsh June can be here. I'll taste the meat of elk, deer, and something else more exotic. Watch to the end to find out who I'm talking about. Together with you we will look at the White Nights and get crazy from the beauty of the north and its architecture. Ready? Then let's go. First, we will go to Riga, the capital of Latvia. And the first thing that pleased me was that we thought of stocking up on warm clothes. Yes, here are 2 cabbages with my daughter. In Riga in the summer, it felt like it was winter in Japan, but don't worry, adventure awaits. I am sure that new emotions will help to warm up. Riga is the largest city in the Baltic countries, but in truth, it is not big at all. Quiet center, classic narrow streets, and incredible architecture. And all the iconic places can be bypassed in a couple of hours. But this atmosphere will enchant you. And here is one of the attractions that will find you by itself. Beer bus. Cool entertainment for those who want to relax and work out at the same time. So, let's not talk about sports for now. Let's talk about food. So far, nothing special. You probably look and think, so where are the promised delicacies? Guys, everything is ahead, but you have no idea what a pleasure it was for us. For the first time in a long time eat our traditional dishes. Who does not know, we have been living in Japan for more than a year and you will not find borscht with potato pancakes there. Interesting fact. Did you know that every 8th inhabitant of the Baltic states has no right to participate in elections and work in public administration? Many never obtain citizenship after living in the country all their lives. They even have a passport, which is called non-citizen of Latvia or Estonia, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Many residents of the Baltics who previously had Soviet citizenship found themselves without definite citizenship. The non-citizen passport was introduced to give them some legal status and basic rights. But, unfortunately, the right to participate in elections or know the state positions these people cannot. In this case, you need to pass exams on knowledge of the language, history, and culture of the country. But many don't. In the heart of the city, near St. Peter's Cathedral, there is a super important attraction. And this, of course, a monument to the Bremen town musicians. You need to rub everyone's nose, and then the fulfillment of any desire is guaranteed. By the way, we have a new friend here. The camera does not transmit, but the seagulls here are of some gigantic size. I would compare it to a rooster. Well, a friend knew where to fly to fill her stomach, because a whole bird communal building was built nearby. But the birds hardly live here. It's more like an art object. Of course, there are many authentic cathedrals, monuments, and churches. This is a famous monument of freedom and one of the symbols of Latvia. The idea of building a memorial in honor of the soldiers who died in battle during the Latvian War of Independence. We walked through very nice parks and squares with lakes. You can even rent a catamaran, but we didn't have much time, and we wanted to have time to see as much as possible. In the very center of the historical district, the old town of Riga, there is one beautiful street. It is famous for the fact that films were shot on it in Soviet times. Does everyone love Sherlock? So this is where the old films about Sherlock and Dr. Watson were filmed. And they even passed this place off as London. Well, let's talk about food again. Wait for the Baltic delicacies. I promise they will come later. Well, now they are my favorite potato pancakes, although redfish added unusualness to them. And a super cool serving of soup in a crust of bread. God, how I missed this. Motorists now ask to sit down, because we're going to the vintage car museum. Girls, if you, like me, don't rummage around in cars, believe me, you won't regret coming here. The museum contains rare cars and motorcycles from the early 20th century. Bicycles, generators, and water pumps were made by world-famous car manufacturers. You may have already seen many of these cars in films. The museum provides cars for filming movies and photo shoots. All exhibits in the museum are real treasures. At the sight of this beauty, Jack and Rose flashed before my eyes. Yes, the ones from the Titanic movie. The car, of course, is not the same, but it is very reminiscent of the one that was in the cult film. Walking through the halls of the museum, you will plunge into the atmosphere of the 20s, 30s, and subsequent decades. Everything is here, from classic limousines to sports cars. The time machine has not yet been invented, but here you can partially return to the past. Some cars are for rent, so take the wheel in your hands and go on an exciting trip through the old streets of Riga. Next in our cultural program was the House of the Blackheads on Town Hall Square. The building was built in the 14th century and belonged to one of the most influential guilds, the Blackheads. The brotherhood included young and active guys. The society was the richest and most influential influential trade organization in Riga. The members of the fraternity, in addition to work, organized parties and masquerades, exhibitions, and tournaments, and got off as best they could. The house hosted the most influential guests from all over the world. From 2012 to 2016, the president of Latvia lived here while the restoration was taking place in the presidential palace. After the president moved in, a very interesting and informative museum was opened in the building for visitors. Medieval cellars, halls, beautifully decorated rooms, and galleries. Here are real knightly armor, medieval weapons, and art elements. The House of the Blackheads is located almost in the center of the old town of Riga, and in just a few minutes you can walk from it to the Dome Cathedral. This is the largest medieval temple in the Baltic states. For several centuries, the ancient cathedral has been the center of musical life for residents of the capital and tourists. Here is the famous organ. You can listen to its sound during divine services, but it is best to come to a classical music concert, which is regularly held in the cathedral. The original building was a mixture of Romanesque and Northern Gothic. Today, elements of Baroque, Gothic, and Art Nouveau are visible in the cathedral. Pay special attention to these incredible stained glass windows. Well-known figures of that time are buried here. This, for example, is the urn with the ashes of the famous philosopher Carl Gustav Jochman. One of the main symbols of Riga, along with the organ of the Dome Cathedral, is a golden cockerel, a weather vane mounted on the spire of the temple. In 2015, the cockerel was removed, restored, and replated with 24-karat gold. Walking down these corridors gave me goosebumps. One can only guess how many events, stories, and secrets lie within these walls. The Riga Dome Cathedral is a place where history and modernity merge, and each stone keeps its history. After that, we ran into a local shop. And of course, the feature of Latvia, sprats, immediately caught my eye. As for me, the perfect souvenir from Riga. What surprised me more was the local Olivier. Let's try to find similarities with the present, and I don't see them. And of course the White Knights. I was shocked that I would find this phenomenon here. Almost 11 p.m. See how light it is. It starts to get dark here at about 11 midnight. I'm just shocked. Riga, of course, gave us a lot of impressions. But this sea was not enough for us, and we decided to go to the real one. Jurmala welcomes us. This is a Latvian resort town in the Gulf of Riga. It's famous for its Art Nouveau wooden villas, Soviet-era sanatoriums, and long sandy beach. It's insanely beautiful, but there isn't much to do here. But the cool thing is that because of the strong north wind, the waves move so fast as if you were watching a video on acceleration, only offline. Our trip around Riga is coming to an end, and I am extremely grateful to this city for new impressions and an incredible historical atmosphere. Yes, the weather certainly failed, but so be it. Close our eyes to it. Well, now we are waiting for a no less exciting trip. We are going to Estonia, and specifically in her heart is Tallinn. By the way, write in the comments if you have been to one of the Baltic countries. If so, did you like it? And what places do you recommend visiting? Tallinn is one of the best preserved medieval cities in Europe. It is a rather small city with a population of just over 500,000 inhabitants. And that's with the suburbs. You can easily move around the city on foot, having managed to see the main sights in a couple of days. You can spend hours wandering through the narrow streets of the city, among low bright houses. Gothic churches and medieval towers give the city a special charm, but from time to time they are diluted with modern graffiti and sculptures. And it is in the old town of Tallinn that the largest number of museums, churches, cafes, bars, souvenir shops, and other locations necessary for tourists are concentrated. And so we got to one of the establishments. In Riga, we have already eaten our favorite borscht and potatoes, so we will try something more non-standard. Soup with elk meat. Smells very appetizing. My daughter didn't like it though. Very interesting taste. I don't even know what to compare it to. I also tried the moose meat pie. Also very tasty. By the way, literally in every store, you will find canned food unusual for us. For example, canned food with deer, with elk, with roe deer. Are you familiar with long Herman and fat margarita? If anything, I do not offend anyone. This is the name of two famous towers in the city. There is a legend in Tallinn about why the towers were given such names. A long time ago, a peasant's son Herman and a fisherman's daughter Margarita lived here. They fell in love with each other and walked around the city in the evenings, holding hands. However, someone put a curse on them. They could only see each other until midnight. Once they missed the hour of parting, and when the clock began to strike midnight, they rushed in different directions. But with the last blow, the slender and tall Herman became a tall tower, which today is called Long Herman, and Margarita turned into a tower. Fat Margarita. So they stand on opposite sides of the old city in memory of the lovers, who were separated by a cruel fate. What a tragic but romantic legend. Of course, the Baltic views and architecture simply captivate me. This city, with its stone walls and magnificent roofs of buildings, seems to have escaped from a fairy tale. Majestic views from the coast of the Baltic Sea complete the picture, giving Tallinn its uniqueness and special appeal. And here is our girlfriend caught up with us in Tallinn. Only now she does not just pick up bread from the ground, but performs a whole acrobatic act. In short, of course, she gathered a lot of people around her. Any girl will be jealous. Guys, have you ever eaten bear meat? Or maybe a deer or an elk? Well, before coming to Estonia, I didn't either. But all this turned out to be a traditional dish. So let's try at risk. For such an event, we chose one of the most famous restaurants in the city, Old Hansa. The owners tried to recreate the life of a rich medieval house in modern conditions. The interior, dishes, the appearance of the staff, as well as food and drinks. And of course, I will pay special attention to the ladies' room. Have you ever seen such a sink? I just eat with delight. Everything seems to be unreal. But we came here for a specific purpose. This is bear meat. And this is an elk and 2 deer. So, let's try the moose meat. You know, it looks like filet mignon. Delicious. Now let's try the deer meat. This meat is harder, but also very, very tasty. And the last one is bear meat. Can you imagine? Have you ever tried to bear meat? Very juicy and easy to cut. But the taste is a little off for me. I put elk meat in the first place. It was an interesting experience, and I hope our digestive system will cope with such a meal. And we're going to explore the city further. You must have heard of chimney sweeps before, but do you know what is behind this profession? Chimney sweeps in Estonia have a long and respected history. The profession has existed for several centuries and in the past was one of the most important and in demand. They ensured the correct operation of heating and ventilation systems. Chimney sweeps used special tools and equipment for their work. One such tool was the chimney sweep bag, a special bag in which they kept their tools and equipment. Such work involves the risk associated with working at height and exposure to flue gases. People had to be physically fit and brave to do their job efficiently and safely. The chimney sweep profession currently exists in Estonia, but over time its importance has declined due to changes in heating and ventilation technology. However, some traditional buildings still require such services. What will not leave anyone indifferent is the Maritime Museum. This is probably the most popular museum in Estonia, where both children and adults come with joy. Here you can see a seaplane, touch ships, sit in the hold of a submarine, play games, and watch stories in 3D. We did not even expect such emotions from this museum. We are still under that impression. A huge collection of exhibits, and most importantly, everything can be touched, twisted, and climbed everywhere. And I was with 2 small children. In a regular museum, there are always "do not touch" signs. And here I am, and they had a lot of fun. Right now we are going down into the hold of a real submarine. Well, where else could I experience it? We were able to find out how the boat works, how it was driven, and what is inside in general. This is where people used to sleep and rest. Not the most comfortable stay, perhaps, but what it is. And then they came here for breakfast. And here is the kitchen. Even the stove and pans from those times have been preserved. The peculiarity is that they look like they are not very large, but you open the lid, and there you can't see a saucepan. It's just that it is partially, let's say, built into the oven. And this is the engine room. Submarine heart. There were 2 diesel engines for surface running and 2 electric motors for underwater. This is what the cabin looks like. Each cabin has a toilet, but you can't go inside this tiny lavatory. The entrance was covered with glass, probably so that no one would think that since everything can be touched, then here you can do things for their intended purpose. This place is for storing personal items. Some of them even managed to save. The rest of the crew lived in the bow and stern of the boat. A maximum of 28 people lived on board. This compartment is designed for 8x, and the torpedo part served as housing for 16 crew members. Then we went outside and explored the museum itself. Here the mechanisms of the submarine are shown in more detail. You can steer a boat in the large pool. And here is a whole simulator, where you take the steering wheel in your hands and try not to crash into something after 5 seconds. My children even tried themselves as an ice cream seller on the pier. Sasha bought an ice cream cone for €4, but Anya went bankrupt. Sasha was able to sell her ice cream for €90. On the ship, we were shown a very cool animation of the crew. Here we can watch the work of sailors, officers, captain, and cook. Now I can confidently boast that I have been on a submarine. It was very cool. I advise everyone to go here if you are in Tallinn. I want to show you what I have been dreaming about for a long time, but the reality was too harsh and divided us. I have been dreaming of homemade food for so long. For more than a year and a half, I have not been to my homeland and have not eaten blood sausage. But to be honest, it wasn't very tasty here. But I miss it, so I'll eat. Lastly, I cannot say again about the White Knights. Estonia also has this phenomenon. Coming to visit the inhabitants of the Baltic states, as if you find yourself in a time loop. On the medieval streets, we were transported to the distant past. But I want to note that we specially went to the old cities to enjoy the culture. And so Riga and Tallinn are very modern cities. The latter is even ahead of the European capitals in technology and infrastructure. For example, the IT sector is developed at the highest level here. Estonia is generally, as it turned out, a country of IT people. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Support me with like and subscribe, and I ran to make new content for you.